Now that we've covered common file formats and modes in Photoshop, it's important to go over the difference between 16-bit and 8-bit images. So when we're editing photos in Photoshop, usually we're editing in RGB mode. So we got red, green, blue. I just have a graphic up here that kind of illustrates what happens with this additive light mode. So we have green here, it would be 100% green. So if we were setting something as green, it would be, on RGB here on the color picker, green would be 255, blue would be 0, red would be 0. All right, so if we had green there, blue there, red there, those are the 3 primary channels of light. If you go to Window and then Channels, you'll see the 3 channels of light as long as we're in RGB mode. And when they overlap, you'd get cyan, you get magenta, you get yellow, and then white when all 3 of them are combined, because this is an additive color mode. And then the absence of any of them would be black. You might be thinking, well, how do we get a photograph out of RGB? If we only have 3 colors. Well, we actually have 256 shades of each color, and they combine together and work together in channels of light in varying degrees to create millions and millions of colors. So here are 72 colors on a wheel. Of course, there's many more colors in this, but just to give the idea, this would be only using red, and then as it begins to use more of the green, we get all the orange and yellow hues in between there, and then here's just pure blue, pure green, and in between blue and red, you get kind of the magenta and the purple. So what does this have to do with 8-bit and 16-bit? Well, under 8-bit images, you get 256 possible variations of red, green, and blue each. So if you multiply those all together, you get 16.8 million possible colors. And so you might be thinking, well, that's a lot of colors. Why do you need more than that with a 16-bit image? And the human eye can only differentiate between, according to some, a few million colors, according to others, maybe up to 10 million, but definitely not up to, they haven't discovered it yet that we can see up to 16.8 million colors and the differences between them. So you might be thinking, why do we need more than that? Well, I'll show you, because having more colors and more differentiation between a wider range of colors helps, especially when we're editing. Now, 16-bit colors, we actually have 65,536 shades of red, and then the same number for blue and green. And so we're looking at 281 trillion possible colors. Now, these images are a little bit larger. They're not to that extent larger than the 8-bit because it's possible colors. All right, it doesn't mean it has all those colors in there. But I'll show you the difference here. So I'm going to go to File, New, and I'll just use the default what I have on clipboard for now. And I'm going to just add a gradient to this. And you'll notice when I went to File, New, it had 8-bit on the bottom right here. That's what we want. So I'm going to add a gradient here just from black to white so you'll be able to see just a very simple example. So if I choose the gradient tool and I click and drag over to the left to the right, you'll see we just have a bunch of different shades of black and white and in between. All right, so I'm going to crop this a little bit, something like that. Okay, so this is 8-bit. Looks pretty good. Now I'm going to copy this area just so we have the same exact size. All right, so I'm going to go to File, New, and now I'm going to go to 16-bit, and it automatically has the same size because it's in our clipboard. So now we have a new file that's 16-bit. I'm going to do the same thing. Click and drag over, holding Shift to make it perfectly level. And so we have, I'll close out this other image here. All right, so if I go to Image, Arrange, 2 up horizontal, they look pretty much identical right now. All right. So here's the top one where it says 16 right next to the RGB color mode. Move this down a little bit. And then right here it says 8-bit. So the 8-bit's on the bottom, 16 bits on the top. Look pretty identical. So let's go to Image Adjustments Levels in this top one, the 16-bit. And let's affect the output levels. So let's go to about, so they're all the same exactly, 120, and let's move the other one to about 140. So this is basically removing the very darks and very lights area, just keeping this little mid-tone. All right. So from whatever the pixels are in there, they're only going to output this narrower range. So I'm going to do the same thing to the bottom one. Deselect. All right, image, adjustments, levels, and this is going to be 120. This one's going to be 140. All right. So at this point, they look pretty similar. I don't see much difference with the human eye between the two. Let's go back though and go to image, adjustment levels, and let's bring our shadows, our input over to the same. So let's do 120. Let's bring the highlights over. So we have 120 and 140. So that's that bottom one we just did, and let's do the top one. Image, adjustments, levels, same thing. 120, 140, and OK. All right, so see the difference. This is the 8-bit. This is the 16-bit. There are just so many more possible colors to use within this range compared to the one below. So this is kind of using an exaggerated example to show why you'll get image quality loss if we are in 8-bit mode and we do a levels adjustment just too much. So if this seems confusing, don't worry. Basically, the idea is it's fine to work in 8-bit mode. A lot of the support files are in 8-bit mode and are JPEG. Some of the effects are not available in 16-bit compared to 8-bit, at least with certain versions of Photoshop, and it's not problematic to work in 8-bit mode. It's just that when we have a really high-quality RAW file in 16-bit mode, we want to work in that 16-bit mode as long as possible before, if you ever have to convert it to 8-bit mode to do a certain effect that's not available in the 16-bit mode. Because we want more of our photo to look like this and not like this. Will this happen in a photo necessarily? Well, no. I mean, techniques that we're going to be doing even in 8-bit mode are fine. It's not going to cause this huge loss of quality. It's just the idea that this is why, as a portrait photographer, it is important to shoot in RAW mode if you're going to do a lot of tonal adjustments, and so that you have more to work with to begin with. The RAW file has a 16-bit mode and has besides having more possible colors, it also doesn't compress either. So that's the difference between 8-bit mode and 16-bit color mode. If you go to image mode up at the top, you see it right down here. Working in 8 bits is fine, but if you just want to kick it up a notch and you're going to do a lot of tonal adjustments and levels adjustments, curves adjustments, it's better to use 16-bit mode if you've already had that mode from a RAW file.